Hello traders, welcome to another YouTube live here. We're going to talk about Bitcoin in this video, starting from the weekly chart and then moving down to the smaller time frames, going to the daily, 4-hour and 1-hour chart. But first off, we always like to look at the larger time frames to get a good overview of what's happening within the macro pattern. So not really going to discuss like the overall time frame, just kind of discuss the kind of smaller, more recent price action that we're seeing within the few candles here. Now, what I do notice right now is we haven't closed this weekly candle yet, but what we see is decreasing volume coming into the market. We see the price did move pretty significantly in terms of the actual distance the price moved from the open to now, where we could see a close in just under 2 days here. But the amount of transactions and the amount of volume to actually get the price to that zone was not very much. So there's a bit of a discrepancy there. So that shows me that there's a little bit of weakness from the bulls. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that we will get an instant rejection down, but if we continue to see the weakness while we're coming up, that will just further validate the resistance that will potentially be from the previous support that we saw, which is around the $9,500 zone. So, in that said, that's kind of all what we're going to touch on the weekly. We're now going to jump to the different daily charts that we're going to use. First, the CME Futures Exchange, which is the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, and then we're just mainly looking for gaps within this market, which at this point in time, we don't really see any gaps within the market, so we're not really going to analyze it too much. I think the other daily chart on Gemini gives a little bit more clear of a picture, but we don't see a tremendous amount of volume coming on this current candle. The previous bullish candle did see more volume than the previous 3 bullish candles we saw. So that does definitely show a little bit more significance and a little bit more pressure from the buyers pushing up above the key level of resistance that we saw at maybe 9K or 9,100. And then we pushed above that zone, and now we've made a new higher high. Now, structurally speaking, when you make a nice higher high from a consolidation, which we just saw right there, well, that is potentially going to make the market shift. Now, this is in line with the overall structure of the weekly, because we know that we are in a bullish trend and we are seeing the price move towards the upside, but this could be a nice pullback. And that is the sentiment that we're trying to create. And then going to the different daily chart, we're also able to find a nice confluence zone with the descending trend line connecting the lower highs. So now, with that said, the next daily chart will, I think, give a little bit more clear illustration of what I mean in what I just said in the prior chart. So I think the Gemini exchange is a good exchange to show other than the CME, compared to the CME. So this is that descending trend line that I was talking about. This is the anchor point. I didn't draw it perfectly on there. So the top wick is that anchor point right there. And then we see our first validation right here. We can't say that that's a dependable zone. And then we got our third touch, making it a potentially dependable zone. And now we're going and potentially going to react to this zone again, creating another level, making it a valid zone, because now we have 4 touches of this trend line. So that is going to be the first resistance that I see that the price may have a reaction to. And then looking for horizontal levels of resistance, we see this was a resistance that turned into a nice level of support, could come in as a new level of resistance. I think this descending trend line may have to get adjusted depending on how far the price goes. We do want to wait until there are signs of weakness, looking at the smaller time frames, seeing lower lows and lower highs, seeing a potential ascending trend line. When it does consolidate, there's an ascending trend line, and then if that breaks, there's a high probability of the price going down. There are things that you can look for signs of weakness, and right now we're just seeing the price move to the upside right now, so we don't want to be looking for that just yet. We're currently seeing a higher low form, which could then push us to that retest area, in my personal opinion, and it could be somewhere over here. This descending trend line, like I said, could be moved. You could have it at this zone, we could have a little bit wider there. So we don't exactly know where this is going to be placed because we don't have that last validation. So if we do see the price break this descending zone, we're not really going to be looking to long the main place I want to see the price break for any real long opportunities would be the $9,600 level of resistance. If that does get broken, well, then that means we broke the lower highs here. We made a new high, definitely, or at least like to this zone here, and then we'll get this zone, and then if we consolidate here, and if we break this high right here, I guess that's more in the 98 range, then definitely I would be looking for a potential move that we were initially looking at, which would be looking back at the weekly. If we do get back up to this range here, we could see the price move back up to maybe the 11.5 or 12K range, somewhere up here. But right now, what I see in the market is a pullback and a potential rejection around the 94, 95-ish area, and then potentially a move further down here, potentially creating a lower low from the 84.50-ish zone that we held initially, which could be an opportunity because we have a potentially dependable trend line here. This green ascending trend line right here, which the anchor point is right here. We have our first point of contact, and then we have our we have our third touch point here, making it a potentially valid zone. And then this was where the consolidation was. We broke above the consolidation and formed a higher high, and now we're potentially looking for that higher low to come in. Don't see a lot of volume, but this candle just started. But that's the overall analysis. We're getting a squeeze right now where you got an ascending support and a descending resistance, squeezing the price closer together. Now, talking about major structural zones of support and resistance, or supply and demand, the main key area of demand for me is going to be the $7,800, $7,700 level of support. That for me is going to be the key area. If the price gets to, I'm really going to be looking for longs. Why is that? Is because looking at the BLX chart, this is that green curved ascending support that we've seen the price hold since late 2010 or 2011 basically. So we know that it's a very well respected area, and it's also a zone of confluence because we've seen it test as a previous resistance and support in the past. So on the weekly, we can see it's this zone right here. We can see it was a previous level of both support and resistance. So if the price does inevitably come back to around that zone, I do think that could be a nice level of demand, a nice level where buyers are going to be located to hold the price up. So on the long-term time frame, obviously you don't want to project your biases too far ahead, but I do think that this could be a potential retest, and then if we do get validation and confirmation that there's sellers in the market, if we get some major kill candles or very significant bearish engulfing candles with a significant amount of sell volume coming in, that could be a sign that sellers are now coming into the market, and then we could potentially see a retest and then a drop further, because on the monthly chart, like I talked about before, I guess I'm going into the week, a monthly and longer time frames. This consolidation, I think, will take longer than most people think. In my personal opinion, obviously, I don't exactly know, but like we've seen in the past, these consolidations can last for 3, 4, even 5 months, and we can 100% trade the volatility, and that's what's great about being a trader. All we're looking for is movement, which in the cryptocurrency market is not that hard to find, but it wouldn't be surprising for me to not really pass the 10 and a half or 11K for maybe even a couple months to the summer here. Obviously, we'll see how it goes, but I'm not really looking for crazy extensions. I'm trying to capture profits a little bit quicker, being a little bit more conservative, because I think we could see a little bit more consolidation here. I think if we do see a drop down, we will form a higher low. This is the previous low that held at around 6,500. And I think if we do drop down below our current level of support at around 85 with the confluence zone with the ascending trend line, if we break that zone of support as a confluence, I think we could touch that $7,700, $7,800 zone for the final level. But right now, we're still in the squeeze, so we don't exactly have a key bias or key direction that we're going to be trading in. We just broke a market structure high on the 4-hour and hour chart, so short-term trades are looking a little bit more bullish, but we do have to keep in mind that descending trend line. So now we're going to go to the 4-hour chart first, Heiken Ashi, to talk about momentum, and then we're going to talk about the 4-hour chart, looking at the candlesticks and discussing what's happening in that in that chart, looking at, I believe it's Bitfinex that we're using for the next chart. So we're looking at buy bait here on the Heiken Ashis. This is the descending trend line like I talked about before. And then, like I said, it could shift a little bit, like we could kind of have it up there. I'm not going to perfectly say that this is going to be the exact point and I have to have an entry at this exact zone. I'm going to see what the price action is telling me. Like, before the price moves to the downside, I'm going to want to see validation of weakness, right? I'm not just putting an entry here saying I'm going to sell at this area and the price instantly gets to that level. I'm going to place my entry. I want to see validation when the price gets to that area. So all I'm saying is somewhere around here where the lower highs are connected and the horizontal zone, there's going to be some level of confluence. And at that area, then we're looking for sells if the market is saying that there's sellers, if there's bearish engulfing candles, if there's more distribution volume than accumulation volume, looking to see on the smaller time frames if it's making lower highs and holding them, if it's holding resistances and breaking supports. There's things that the market will tell you that's saying weakness, that's saying sells. So right now, we're in a consolidation. In my personal view, I do think, yes, we could make another leg up here towards the next key level for BTC, which is around 9,500. But at this point in time, we're just consolidating right here, going sideways. Our key zone, we can see previous level of resistance, and the resistance hold multiple times. After a downtrend, you gotta go in a consolidation after a down. Well, you could instantly push back up, but market trends that are always going to be a downtrend and consolidation and an uptrend. So there's going to be some level where there's going to be a consolidation, and this is exactly what we saw, this consolidation here. Once we broke that high and formed the higher high, which was the break right here, we formed now a higher high. Well, now we're looking for a higher low because we saw a low here that held the previous low, forming a consolidation. We formed a high here. That didn't mean that we're now breaking to the upside because we held this previous resistance, continuing the consolidation. Once we broke this resistance, okay, now we can say, now there could be a potentially bullish trend because we broke the previous high, making a higher high. Now we're looking for a higher low situation. Now we've held this previous low. We got our first injection of buy pressure right there, pushing it up, and then we got a bearish engulfing candle, and then we got our next injection of buy pressure. But what do we see? We see reduced buy pressure coming into the market. We see less buyers trying to push the price up. So we saw our first initial push drive the price above our resistance, gain a lot of buy pressure. So there's a lot of momentum and power to push that price through. That's great to see, and it makes sense. After that, we got a small pullback. The market needs to take a breath, which is totally fine. And then we saw it hold quite a bit higher than our previous level of resistance. So, looking at that, we have quite a bit of room here that the price is able to come down. Now, what we're looking for is injections of buy pressure when we're looking for longs, right? This point right here, we saw 2 candles. Decent amount of buy pressure coming into the market, and we saw increasing buy pressure with the 2 candles. So we saw increasing pressure and volume come in when the buyers were trying to push above a particular zone. So that in itself is good to see. But what happened? It failed with a bearish engulfing candle, but it did see less volume in the bearish engulfing candle than we saw buy volume on the way up. So that is a good thing. Now, after the bearish engulfing candle, we're now getting our second injection of buy pressure, holding this level of support right here. So right now, we're seeing less buy volume on the second attempt because this is the first attempt, and now we're getting our second go at it, and we're seeing less buy volume coming into the market. Now we're seeing a potential rejection yet again after our second attempt. Now, we'll see how the price reacts to this rejection because we've been able to reject it before. We didn't see as much sell pressure than buy pressure, so that's a little bit more volume accumulation. It depends just now on what this current rejection will do. If we're able to see increasing sell pressure, well then that might mean that this is a significant rejection and we could be seeing the price come back down to here as a good little entry. But if we're unable to see this sell pressure increase and we see less sell pressure and we see the price kind of dip down here with not a lot of sell pressure coming in, and then we see a decent interaction. We see a decent interaction at the support we're currently looking at. Well, then that just may be the level of support that we're going to be holding. So then we might try to look for entries at this area with stop losses below that zone, and then our level of confluence with the previous support right here has been seen at around $9,500. So then your entry would be here, your stop loss would be below this previous market structure resistance, which is now your new market structure support, and then your take profit is going to be ideally around this level of supply where we've seen the price respect this zone before. So looking on the 4 hour, it's pretty well respected. The structures there, it's for me pretty easily identifiable. We'll go on the 1 hour and talk about what we're currently seeing on the smaller time frames here, but we've kind of given a good understanding of the overall picture of what we currently are seeing in the markets. So we'll just refine it one last time on the 1 hour, talking about exactly what we're hoping to see for us to enter the market. But at this point in time, I think you do have a good understanding of what's happening right here. So one thing I do just want to put in is this tiny little line here. So if we just look at the wicks at the top of the zone, I'm talking about this wick right here and this wick right here, we see that it's just a wick, but the price is getting rejected at that zone. So for me, this means if the price does inevitably go to here, it doesn't really need to touch my gray area for me to say, okay, this is a really good entry. So what we're looking for is a potential long at this moment. So we have two real options where the market's going to go. I don't really want to look to enter BTC until it gets around this zone here, because then it's a zone of confluence. I have a high probability that there's going to be some reaction here, and the reaction is going to be more geared towards the support because I see previous levels of resistance, ascending support with 1 and then 2 validations of an area of support, and then this could be the third validation. So we have a zone of confluence there that has an area of support right around here, and then we can also see in the volume, just in kind of the recent price action, we see stronger buy volume than sell volume overall. Here's the buy volume, here's the buy volume, lots of buy volume coming in. And in the consolidation, we are seeing mixed buys and sells, but overall, looking at the move to the upside, we're seeing that the buyers are very present and they're in the market buying the assets. So the VSA looks pretty good. We'll see how the volume is if the price does come down to that level. We're not seeing a significant amount of buy volume just yet, but looking at the overall volume within the market, it's not like we're seeing crazy no demands at the highs here where we're getting like, you know, a tiny little volume bar like this. So we're seeing it pretty consistent. We're not seeing a complete drop off. Like for example, this right here was a complete drop off in the level of supply. So it was right here where there's a level of supply. So that for me is a very, not a single-handedly, I'm not going to take it that and then say this is a complete buy because there's a lack of supply, but it's just hints and little crumbs that the market will potentially give you that may help you write your own story of how you see the markets. So in short, not going to enter long, going to be very patient. It's the weekend, it's Saturday tomorrow, so probably going to be a little bit less volume than normal. So, you know, we could potentially see a nice little consolidation. I wouldn't mind that at all, but at the end of the day, we have a long opportunity around right here. We will be looking for price action confirmation when the price does reach that zone to indicate that there are buyers within the market. And if we do enter here and the price does break this ascending trend line, I'm not instantly going to look to short. What I will want to see is the price break this ascending trend line and this horizontal level of resistance, which is now going to be our new level of support, which is this zone right here. So we're currently using this zone as a support. If it breaks the zone, we're now going to be looking at the same zone as a resistance. So it's a pretty important area of the chart that we're looking at right now, especially because on the larger time frames, we can see, yes, it's a pretty important area in the chart as a previous market structure ceiling, and now it's going to be a potential floor for us. We see an unconfirmed ascending trend line because we only have 2 touch points. Hopefully, if we do get the price to reach around this area, we get a reaction, so then we know that that this area is a key zone within the chart. So that's the overall analysis, if we just get a pump straight up from this zone here, we'll hopefully be looking at different alts within the market to trade. We do have some within our portfolio that are looking somewhat appealing if there are a couple more candles that are able to hit some key zones, which we'll talk about in a crypto market update. But at this point in time, we're just looking for that nice pullback and a validation of a level of support. We already talked about it. So at this point, we will now go to the tools that we're using to analyze the supply and demand within the market. The first thing we're going to look at is going to be the BTC longs and shorts that are opened on margin on the Bitfinex exchange. So looking at the buyers, which are the candles right here, we see that yet again, this level has been attracting interest for the buyers, which is pretty important. We see in the past right here that we saw a massive move to the upside. There was a tremendous amount of people who opened up longs in the strong uptrend starting 2020, and then there was a bit of a cool off when it hit 9100, and that's that sell off there, and then we saw a resurgence of pressure and buy volume, and then now we got another cool off. Same, very, very similar level here where we're getting interest yet again to come into the market. So just looking at the supply and demand, or I guess more just the demand in this particular chart, we can see that the area of demand is kind of where we are right now. So we could start seeing a little bit of consolidation here, which would be ideal with the overall structure that we're looking for, a little consolidation, and then hopefully, you know, within a few days or a little longer or a little shorter, we might see the bulls push the price a little bit higher after the pullback. Hopefully we get a potential entry here. That is what we're looking for. And then if we're able to get a consolidation and a little bit more interest from the bulls, this is obviously the daily chart, but I wouldn't mind, you know. And it's not to say that this retest will instantly come back down. Looking at where it is now, looking at how the demand has been ebbing and flowing, we can see there is a potential for, again, a resurgence of buy pressure, which could mean that the price could break this $8,600 level. So we don't want to look too far ahead and make too many biases or judgments saying, yes, it has to pull back at the 95. If it gets there, that's where we're 100% going to short. No, we're going to see the price react at that zone. See how the price gets there. See how the price reacts when it's actually there. See the consolidation. Look at the volume. Look at the actual candlesticks on larger time frames. We're assessing the story. We're not trying to tell the story. So there's a difference in how you look at the chart. So in that said, that is the BTC longs, and then the shorts, not a whole lot of interest in the shorts. I'm not going to discuss too much of it because there hasn't been any real progress in the amount of margin shorts that are opened on the Bitfinex exchange. Now for the last tool that we're going to be using, which assesses different exchanges, similar type of situation where you're assessing the margin trades that are opened, except this gives you a snapshot of the 24-hour and the 1 hour positions that were opened on each exchange, which is BitMEX, Binance, and Bybit. So the first one, it's a comparison 50-50, or it's out of 100, and it's going to be either the percentage of long or shorts. So BitMEX is in the 24-hour time frame is more weighted towards a longs, where BitMEX has 52% of the people thinking long, and then 47% of the people, or I guess 48% of the people looking short. I'm going to round numbers here. On Binance, there's around 49% of people versus 51, so basically break even. And on Bybit, there's around 0.5% discrepancy, so not a huge discrepancy on the 24-hour time frame for our three exchanges we're looking at. Now looking at the 1 hour time frame, a lot smaller time frame, we see that there's a little bit more of a discrepancy, 52.8% versus 47.2% for the long side. On Binance, 48 to 52 for the short side, so a little bit more short heavy. On Bybit, 54% to 46%. So not really much discrepancy because we're now in the consolidation phase here. So at this point in time, we could see the consolidation continue. If the price does inevitably get to our 89 or 9K level of support, or I guess more 89, not 9K, I'd say 89. Once it gets to that level, then we will assess how the price is reacting to these zones. If it's seeing buy pressure, we could get a nice long entry around these zones. And hey, if it does break down, we've managed our risk. We'll set a stop loss here. And in my opinion, that's still a good potential trade here for an upside, good risk reward. Overall, I would be happy if I was able to see a good entry opportunity here, if it does show me indications of buy pressure. Just saying again, I'm not going to enter here instantly when the price gets to that level. If there's a wick that wicks down and then actually closes at the high there and I'm not able to capture it, well then so be it. I don't mind, because I would rather be not in a trade and the trade go my way than to be in a trade I wish I wasn't in. Because one thing is like fake profits. It's mentally disappointing because you're not in the profits that you wish you were. Like, for example, if BTC did go there and I didn't catch that profit because I was sleeping or something, there's a little bit of frustration because you did your analysis, you planned it out and everything, but you weren't able to capitalize because of whatever reason. If it was psychological, if it was just you not being able to do it because you were sleeping or whatever, then so be it. That's fine. But if it's a trade that you're not in and it's profiting, you're not losing anything other than the potential gain you would have got if you entered. But if you're in a trade that you wish you weren't, you're actually losing money. You're physically losing money in your account. There's no imagination there. You're like the worth of your portfolio is actually decreasing. So obviously, I would way rather wait for a trade that I have a little bit more conviction and confidence in, and then I don't feel like I'm entering a position that I don't have a lot of confidence in if it's just a small wick to the downside. I see people enter those a lot. I personally just would not want to do it. Like, seeing people enter a wick just down there, in my personal opinion, I wouldn't enter there. That's just me. Everyone has a different way of trading. Everyone has a different way of navigating through the market, but that's just the way I go about doing my trading. So basically, that's the overall trade. So someone asks in the YouTube comments, would it be possible for you to share your opinions on the stock market? So I personally will not in this video because this is a BTC analysis, but I think there's actually a podcast coming out that our team is doing about the current state of the economy, both the U.S. and somewhat globally. And we're not going to touch on too many topics, but mostly U.S. But we will discuss that in a later podcast. So for people who are looking to learn more or kind of have an interest in what our thoughts are, definitely we will be able to provide that. So thank you very much for watching this BTC market analysis. We didn't do a whole lot today because we're just in our consolidation. And like we said, I've already talked to the members discussing how this is a potential entry here, and we didn't really see anything this Friday, so we didn't really look to enter anything. We just closed our Ethereum trade, which did phenomenally well. Surprisingly, considering a lot of the market didn't really do as much or push up as high. But that's really great. So we just closed off on the Friday, and then we're going to start fresh this upcoming week with no trades, no exposure on the market right now for our trading portfolio. Obviously, we have investments in the market, but that's not really pertaining to what we're doing right here is trading, capitalizing just on the volatility, looking for the high probability situations, trying to understand the story that the market is telling us by looking at all the indications and all the little breadcrumbs that the market is able to give us, like looking at the three pillars that we're trying to analyze, which is going to be price action, market structure, and volume spread analysis, or VSA, is what we use for our three pillars for navigating the market. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got some value, some knowledge, some entertainment, I guess, from our videos. We do it every single day for you guys. We post a BTC market analysis every single day. Today, it was a little bit